We're very happy today to have our next special guest in the bunker, Vivian Santora from PowerPlay New York City. Vivian, welcome.
Thank you.
So Vivian and I are in the New York City area. We also obviously have Tony Alvarez, who I believe Paris, right? Is that where you're at?
Paris. I'm in my Paris bunker, Paul.
We're all in our respective bunkers, as always. So anyway, Vivian, as we discussed, thank you for being here today with us. A little history quickly on what we've been doing sort of within the bunker with Alvarez and Marsal. Tony and I came together at the beginning of lockdown, quarantine, pandemic to talk about just updating each other about parts of the firm, how we're working together, sharing, how we're solving issues and things like that. And just kind of personally and professionally, how we're dealing with everything around COVID in general. And what we have done is open that up because we thought it would be interesting to get a real cross-section of our relationships, of really society in all other parts of the world, to get their perspective on how they're managing personally, how they're managing professionally. And, we're creating a nice series of kind of best practices, and people are learning new things about people and new things about geographies. And so, I don't think we've had anyone really in from the nonprofit world before, which is great to have you. So before we get started, I think it would be great if you can give us, 30 seconds on your personal background for people who aren't familiar with you, and then a few minutes on PowerPlay New York City, which is the organization you're president and CEO of. And I am fortunate enough to serve on your board of directors. Great organization, fully supportive. And Alvarez and Marsal as a firm is very supportive of PowerPlay. So with that, turn it over to you.
I have you. Well, first of all, Paul, I told you I'm a little nervous because you had like the Scaramouche, Lulu and Lala and Apple Diap, and I'm like, whoa, like now
but we also have me and Paul, so you have nothing to worry about.
In that case, forget it.
Right.
No, thank you so much. And a little bit about me. I always like to start with my family and upbringing. I'm the youngest of 7 kids, Italian Catholic family. So I think I learned at a young age I really needed to speak up if I wanted to be heard as the baby in the family. I went to school here in Buffalo, New York, and then got my master's in public administration. And that's really when I really honed in on, my role in terms of what I wanted to do for society, give back, make sure my personal mission was to empower women and girls. So if you look through my career, and every job pretty much I've ever held, whether it was political or nonprofit, had some roots there. And that was the theme. So I worked for national organizations like the Girl Scouts USA. I worked for a global organization called Women's World Banking. And then really came to PowerPlay. I always say I played a ton of sports growing up, but I excelled at nothing, right? So I played basketball, I was a cheerleader, field hockey, you name it, I did it. But what I loved so much about it was the camaraderie, the sisterhood, the support, and the lessons that you learned. And so here we are at PowerPlay, which has been around for 22 years. So there's a lot of longevity there, which was founded by Ellen Markowitz. And she saw a real need, particularly in New York, this like concrete jungle, like where do girls have a safe space to play? And be themselves and have these learnings that she felt she got because she was a tennis player. And particularly seeing the gap in services for girls of color and from low-income communities. So that was the focus. So here at PowerPlay, we empower girls through sport to excel, physically, emotionally, and academically. And that's what we do each day.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's a great mission. It's one that I'm a little more familiar with, obviously, because of my involvement on the board. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I know has been challenging, not just for PowerPlay, our organization, but for many nonprofits, is, in the COVID environment with lockdown, there's a couple real challenges here from a nonprofit perspective. First and foremost is continuing the services that a PowerPlay or another similar organization would provide, because the need doesn't go away, right? The need for these girls, what is it, ages, 8 through 18 or whatever the range is, but the need for the services doesn't go away, but there's a significant challenge in delivering them now in this new environment. So maybe talk to us a little bit about that. How has PowerPlay traditionally done things, and then how are we adapting? Because I know one of the things you've told me you're very proud of is, we've really had uninterrupted delivery of services to the girls during this period. And I know some of the things I've been involved with virtually, like we did a virtual Shark Tank with the girls and things like that. But why don't you tell us about that?
Sure. Yeah. So in a normal world, right, we would be in the schools offering after school programming. We traditionally reach, anywhere from 800 to 1,000 girls in our after school program. And that's all 5 boroughs that we work with, Title I schools. So they're essentially the most needy schools. And then we have sort of what I like to say, our high impact program, which is our Summer Leadership Academy and the Rising Stars Academy. So that's for middle school and high school young women. And, we're with those girls Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. They're getting college and career readiness, obviously a physical literacy, physical sport, each and every day. And all of that would be in person, right? So this, in March, when the world sort of shut down, we pivoted. Within 2 weeks, we were offering and prepared to offer our after school programming virtually. So we had 12 schools that said, yes, sign us up. What we also did was we sent out over 300 care packages to our girls. So if we had a good address, we made sure each one of those girls got something in the mail from us that allowed them to stay physically active at home while there was a shutdown. So everything from jump ropes, resistance bands, things that don't take up a lot of space, really easy to do, and a whole list of different exercises that they could do at home. And we also pushed some content out with our coaches that filmed, how to do a proper sit-up, a proper plank, all of those sorts of things. Then for our summer program, we pivoted and did all of that virtually as well. Now, I will say one of the challenges is, accessibility. So just because there's so much need doesn't mean everyone has access. So we were really lucky to get one funder who covered the expense to make sure every girl in the high impact program for the summer had a laptop to borrow, so that we can stay engaged with them. So on the ID fund. So they were tremendous. And that way we can keep the level and the quality of the program as intense and as, our expectations in terms of the quality of the program, and allowed us to do that as well and deliver.
And what has the feedback been from the girls? Has there been a drop off of participation? Has there been an increase in needs of girls who looking for participation, or how are they managing that? How do they feel about it?
I mean, the need is there, there's no doubt. And I would even argue it's increased. But our ability to reach them is the challenge, right? Because I'm sure, so many, you guys have kids, it's, there's so much unknown, particularly in the New York City school system, about which schools are going to be open, who's hybrid. So there's sort of this dichotomy of what's going on between what the principals want versus what our funder, the city, right, who gives us a good portion of our funding, would like to see happen, and what we are capable of doing. So we are ready, willing, and able, and we have 11 schools signed up for virtual program for the fall already. And we're hoping to be back in person in January in the new year. But right now that's the challenge, because parents are challenged. They have to work from home and then have to worry about making sure that their child or girl has access to get on for an after school program. But we really want to be as of much support as possible to the principals in terms of what can we be doing to make your job easier and to reach those girls and keep them physically active in this environment.
So what percentage of the schools are actually where the kids are going to school, and so there's physical attendance, and what percentage are really homeschooling or not going to school?
I have to be honest, I'm not sure the exact numbers because it changes every day. I mean, even the mayor just closed a handful of schools in Brooklyn and in Queens. So it really does vary, and they're all at different levels of virtual engagement. And some just don't have the capacity to execute on an after school program when they're just worried about the health and wellness of their teachers and the students themselves.
Amazing, amazing. And how would you get the equipment to somebody that's not physically in the school? How do you, I guess it begs the question, how can they even get schooling if they don't have a piece of equipment? If they're
Right.
needing to get equipment from you, it means they don't have equipment to go to school. So they're not getting schooling.
Right. Or you have, households that are sharing a laptop, right? Or kids that are sharing it with their parents for work. So it's really, really a challenge. And, again, we're just trying to, we don't want to add anxiety. We want to help alleviate it, right? So if there's a break that we can offer, whether it's during the school day, some sort of physical component, because a lot of kids are now not moving from class to class, they're staying in their pods, I guess. And so how can we be virtually supportive there? How can we pipe in and offer coaching and engagement with the girls?
Vivian, what would you say has been the biggest challenge in executing on the Power Play mission during this lockdown period?
Largest challenge, I mean, I think it's probably shifted some over time. I think it's really the unknown and trying to make plans, right? I always say no one plans to fail, they only fail to plan. But it's really hard to plan when you don't know. You don't know what schools are going to be open, or if there's going to be another uptick in the virus. So you do your best. So I think one of the things I'm most proud of is the flexibility of the Power Play team and the staff and the coaches, and the sticking with us and being there for the girls when we don't know what the next 2 weeks look like, or we don't know what the next month looks like.
So the difference when you were before the pandemic, you'd physically have activities, so sports activities, organized activities on top of the school activities. So these are ancillary activities, supportive and fitting in with the school. When you're in this type of environment, what are the activities? If you're doing it through a home video and they're in a smaller area, I guess you can't play softball anymore. You can't play different types of sports. What do you guys end up doing?
It's interesting. So just a few weekends ago, and Paul, maybe you had an opportunity to see it. One of our coaches, Coach Raven, taught the girls the basics of basketball. And you may say, well, how did you do that? You didn't have a basketball, you don't have a hoop, you really don't have space. But she was amazing. And she said, listen, go get a shoebox, go get your laundry basket, put that out over there. Do you have a rolled up pair of socks? Grab your socks. What does it look like when you do a flick of the wrist and get it in there? So we are really adapting and using what we have and what they have at home. And it was so much fun. And there's just, this is where I feel like our coaches are the best, right? Like they are upping their game. They are bringing the energy, because you have to do that over Zoom. It's really hard. And they're engaging these girls, and the girls are having a blast.
Wow.
That's so funny, Tone, to hear Vivian say that, because you started off by talking about Apple the App from the Black Eyed Peas, and he was talking the exact same thing. He just said what you said, that when you're doing things over Zoom, you have to bring it, and you have to remember to bring that energy, and you can't feed off the crowd or the people live in front of you. And these are some of the common themes. Like we struggle with it, in a professional environment.
Mm-hmm.
Apple the App struggles with it in an entertainment environment. You struggle with it in a nonprofit environment. I mean, it's the same kind of challenges that everybody has. But correct me if I'm wrong. I think one of the other things we're pretty proud of at PowerPlay, at least, is during this whole time period, we were able to basically maintain all of our coaches and our staff, right? We were able to continue to pay people, and we didn't have to let anyone go. That's right?
Absolutely. So one of the things I really wanted to do was to obviously, as a CEO, one of the things you make sure everyone's safe, right? That's the first thing, right? And then after that, I was like, okay, I need to make sure we are financially sound, secure. And how do we do that but take care of our family, our PowerPlay family? So many of our coaches are part-time, anywhere from 30 to 45 part-time coaches. So what we did was we transitioned. If they weren't able to take a virtual site just because it wasn't available, again, some of the principals just couldn't take that on. We offered professional development through the end of the fiscal year. So equivalent to the hours that they would have put in for after school engagement or sites, we offered those equivalent hours for professional development. And there were certifications and there was a process by which we needed to make sure that they took those courses. But yeah, we kept 100% of our staff employed through June.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And how do you find your coaches? How do you find these special people that are willing to give their part-time, and how do you screen them? How do you train them?
Yep. So I will say, and I'm wearing my Nike sponsored PowerPlay shirt today. Nike had been a huge sponsor of us last year, really helping us to invest and double down in that investment for the coaches' trainings. So several of our coaches come to us that they're in the sports industry field. They want to do sports education. They're getting their master's degrees. They were athletes in high school and college, so they know what sport gave them. And then we have an influx of teachers, so Department of Education teachers that are already in the schools, that are counselors or work with the girls day in and day out. And they end up being amazing, an amazing balance to sort of the athletic coach, right? Because you have the social and emotional learning capacity matched up with the athletics. So we always have two coaches at every site. And so we really try to get that balance there. And that really even enhances the experience for the girls that are going through the program. So for me, I think my expertise at the time, transitioning out of politics, has always been fundraising. And I really came to the table with an idea to say, how can I help PowerPlay diversify its funding and the streams of money that were coming in? But then you get in and you meet the girls and you see the work and the impact that we're having, and it's sort of a no-brainer. And you see the results. The girls are flourishing, they're thriving. And for me, my commitment is to constantly elevate the organization. Going back to the coaches training, how can we outdo ourselves? How can we make sure? I always say the coaches, they may not be with us forever, they're part-time, but I want to know that when they leave PowerPlay, they felt like we invested in them and that they have skills and assets as a professional to go out into the workforce. And for me, all of that comes back because they'll remember that and they'll come back and support PowerPlay.
That's great.
No, it's a tremendous organization. I'm proud to be involved with it. It's personal to me with my three daughters. I've always personally believed, and studies show, that girls and women that are involved in sports are just less likely at risk and are more successful in life. And there's a study that shows that the majority of women CEOs in the Fortune 1000 all played, competitive sports, either at the college level or whatnot.
Like 92%. Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, I knew it was a big number. I didn't know the exact number. But so one of my conditions, though, was, Vivian does such a great job that I said, listen, I'm happy to come on the board and support, but the only condition is Vivian's got to continue in the CEO role. So, I think you've done a tremendous job at PowerPlay. And we've spent now a fair amount of time here in the bunker talking about Vivian, the CEO.
Yep.
And I think we should transition that now towards Vivian, the woman. And, I follow you on social media. I see the things you do personally to cope with this environment, but maybe you can tell us a little. I mean, you got your hands full. You got a lot of things going on outside of PowerPlay.
Yeah.
So why don't you share with us some of the things that you're doing personally, your family, your dog, the whole, fill us in. There's a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah. One of the things that occurred, I was saying I'm the youngest of 7 kids, and my parents, my father's 95 and my mother's 88. And their care became an issue for us to manage. And they're doing well. My mom did have a heart attack in the spring, right as things were starting to open up with COVID. But it became apparent that they needed more care day in and day out. And they're both still home at the house. So I go out there every weekend, and that's my shift, right? So my brothers and sisters are there during the week, taking them to doctor's appointments. I work all week, right, for PowerPlay, and then I go home, which I have to say there's a beauty of it. There's a silver lining in this for me, is that I get to spend this time with my parents, right? So I don't know if had COVID not happened, if this would be the arrangement. And so that's sort of special because I get to see them every weekend and spend that quality time.
And your mother, your 88-year-old mother, I see, is on Snapchat, which is
cool.
Now
she is. Yeah. My niece taught her how to do a Snapchat. So she's like making all these faces, and I don't even know how to do Snapchat yet. So, and I will say that but both of my parents have really great sense of humor. So we don't take ourselves too seriously if we don't have to.
So now talk about you. What are the things that you personally have been doing? Because a lot of stress in PowerPlay, a lot of stress on the personal front with your parents. Yeah. I think a lot of us can relate to that. We're kind of at that stage of life. Yeah. How do you cope with that?
Yeah, so I've been working out a ton at home. In the midst of all of this, I became a Beachbody coach. So I started posting for my own accountability, my workouts day in and day out. And I was getting all this awesome feedback from friends and old schoolmates and things like that. And it became like I was a source of inspiration for them, which is sort of humbling, right? I'm just trying to do it for myself. And now now it's a thing. It's what I do. And I'm so proud of myself because not that I wasn't fit before. I was always a dancer and I did that, but now I'm like lifting weights and I feel really good. So again, another silver lining, which had I not been locked in my apartment for months at a time, I don't know if I would have done that. So that's been a huge stress reliever and self-care. At this point, it's a must to do it.
Yeah, no, I see on social media your workouts and they're very inspiring. I mean, you're really got a lot of passion in it, which is great.
I'm trying.
One thing I wanted to get into is during this time you got a big family and you guys are sharing the responsibility of taking care of your parents, which is amazing. Have you guys gotten together, been able to get together in this period, and how often did you do that before and now during the pandemic and the lockdowns? How often have you been able to keep in touch, or is it by video?
Yeah, so this is really, I was thinking about this the other day. March and April was like super scary, right? Like I don't know if people are still cleaning their packages and, even going into the hallway to throw out garbage, everyone was very on high alert. And so I set up Zoom calls for my family every Sunday. And one Sunday, one of my sisters didn't get on. And I was like, so emotional about it. I was like, you have your husband and kids. I'm alone in the city. Like, you need to get on the Zoom meeting. But that was like the heightened piece of it, right, at that time. So we phased away from the Zoom. We did do that for several months. And then when it became time for really me to go out on the weekends, we're still very precautious. We wear our masks. we've gotten together. I have a brother that lived in Boston, and he came down a few times, and we were very socially distant. And if the weather was nice, we were outside. But we haven't done any like major gatherings. It's been immediate family.
Are you are you still maintaining that today? Like being in the city, how much are you going out and about in the city? How has the city changed for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that's sad because you are seeing differences in the city, and I know it'll come back. I mean, New York City will always be New York City, right? It's just, I don't know how long it'll take. But I'm here, I'm staying. It's an interesting time. I mean, I think with the political elections and Black Lives Matter, and there's a lot happening, and a lot of people are worried, concerned, and just doing the best they can. Really, everyone's doing what works for them, which they need to do for their own self-care.
Yeah.
I was going to say, in the beginning, I think we all were a lot more vigilant, and in lots of places things have kind of tapered off and improved over the summer, and then everybody kind of relaxed, and then now it's spiked, like in the Middle East, in parts of Asia, in Europe. Paul, we just closed our Middle East office for 2 weeks, and I just closed the Paris office for 2 weeks. Because we've had a number of cases that have spiked, and the spread has been much faster than it was in March and April, because people got a false sense of security that things are under control, and they aren't as obsessed about it, and now it's kind of increased. So there is a greater sense of alertness and awareness. I've had calls with a number of our offices, and MD calls, managing director calls, saying, look, we gotta kind of get focused again and make sure that we're taking all the precautions, because it's starting to spike. So I know that there's better treatments when you get in the hospital. They've learned a lot through this last 6 months as to how to best treat it, but there's still no cure, and it's still risky for people. And you have older parents, and we have folks with older living relatives. So it's getting to be a little bit moving towards where we were back in March and April, and with no kind of real end game in sight. So I wonder what you guys are seeing in New York City. Is it getting better overall, or is it the concern that it may spike up again?
I think there's always a concern it may spike up again. I think it's everyone's responsibility, right, to be cautious and to do the right thing. So for me, knowing I have my parents to take care of, I'm not going out of my way to expose myself, right? Like, I've maybe been out to dinner even outside 3 times this summer, over the course since May. I really stay close to home. I've had maybe 1 or 2 friends over, and we were on my roof, of my building. So again, socially distant, masks. I think that's just what you have to do. But again, it's the unknown, right? You want to hope for the best. You want to be optimistic. I want schools to open. We want to be able to serve the girls in person, but you also have to plan for both.
Yeah.
So I think as we kind of wrap this up, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Bella. Is Bella there? Can we see her?
Not, because I was afraid she might interrupt. I know.
Oh, we have interruptions all the time. We have children. We have all.
The bunker is about interruptions.
Right.
She's my baby. That's my fur baby. Yeah.
Your rescue dog, right?
She is. I always say she rescued me, right? I didn't rescue her.
Right.
But yeah, Mini Dachshund. She's at daycare right now.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, I think, it's been great getting your perspective. It's not one we've had, so it's adding to our diversity of visitors and guests here in the bunker.
Mm-hmm.
I think, we would also be remiss if we didn't say, we'll take all the support at PowerPlay that we can get.
Yes. If you didn't.
So how do we solicit donations? PowerPlayNewYorkCity.org, PowerPlayNYC.org, right?
Yes.
Well,
All
Vivian,
right.
you're very inspirational. So keep doing what you're doing. It's great to have had you on in the bunker, and to all of you out there to follow Paul and I. Please go on to PowerPlay and support this cause. It's terrific, terrific work being done.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.